These are my note cards, my introduction, main point 1, main point 2, main point 3, main point 3, and lastly my conclusion. Hundreds of thousands of people migrate all around the world every year. Migration sometimes might not be by choice or by willingness, by being forced out of situations. This can be by fleeing war, famine, or even prosecution that can happen. Immigrants face many barriers when going into a new country that can be difficult to manage. Today, I'm going to explain the obstacles that immigrants face throughout the journey going into a new country. Now that I have explained the choices that immigrants are making, being forced into other countries for the better quality of life, I'm going to discuss the many struggles that they face. First off, when settling into a new country, one of the biggest struggles is language barriers, which is one of the most important ways that we communicate. Scholar Zamora in 2016 by the Utah Department of Health made a survey of cancer patients in the United States over Latino immigrant caregivers, which had a limited English proficiency. Through this data, Spanish-speaker caregivers reported a high satisfaction of care, but had a feeling that if they knew English was their primary language, that their child would have been in better care. These language barriers can be a negative impact into the decision-making that can be given through the experience. Language barriers can also be a very disadvantageous of choice of the journey that are throughout the immigrants in the new country. Now that I have talked about the language barriers and the struggles that immigrants go across, I'm going to explain other struggles that they face. A second struggle is raising children with unfamiliarity around the country. A scholarly journal by Aldini in 2016 made a theory barrier of raising children as a group study. Through this group study, immigrant parents, mothers and fathers, said that it was very difficult raising their children in two different cultural groups. Also, they said that they struggled throughout duties and balancing work, family, and even having a low self-esteem in their parent, and even sometimes a lack of parent. Sometimes being caught into these two groups can be very disruptive for the children, as those socioeconomic and psychological are very disruptive challenges that the child has to overcome. Anxiety, depression are very common disorder, and many other disorders are very common in the children as they are put on much pressure. As pressure is increased on immigrant children, the support of mental health is very low. As these immigrant children are trying to find their identities, there are many stressors that can be endured to these children. Now that I have talked about the challenges of raising children as immigrants, I'm going to talk about another struggle that they face. Lastly, a struggle immigrants face is employment. An article by Rahman in 2023 had recently confirmed that Florida had signed a bill with the federal requisite of employees in state, that no money was intended into the immigrant through paperwork. This is a very big disadvantage to newly immigrants that are finding a job through policies, since of paperwork and many policies that are needed throughout this process. And also that immigrants can be very discriminated at the job. The immigrants workers are mostly put into labor and non-safety protocols that are moreover for native-born workers. In the scholarly journal, De Castro, in 2010, the University of Illinois studied danger for the immigrants of employment. Through this study, it had recognized that 14% of the total national workforce were immigrants. Immigrants were low-waged and had dangerous roles in this working environment, and they're mostly designed to work in these work environments and roles because they didn't have been provided with healthcare benefits or even healthcare insurance. Education level, social class, Job skills, ethnicity and race, and documentation can also be very big prime factors into the employment of immigrants and their mistreatment. Now that I have explained the difficulties of immigrants that are facing through the new country, let me tell you why. Throughout this speech, I had explained the obstacles that immigrants face throughout this country, as they face language barriers, immigrants raising children, or even trying to find employment. These are very big problems that they find to try to better their lifestyle for themselves or even for their families. Even throughout, immigrants play a very big role into all of our communities. And hopefully, you can see that their struggles are mostly for themselves and for their families as they go throughout. Thank you.